Here we go. Mm-hmm. What the heck? Okay. Heck yeah. Let's go. Sorry for the ear rape. Let's go. Get up, Daddy. Get up. Yes. Yes. Go. Oh, I was rooting for him. I love that dog. Dang. Brother, wasn't I in line first? I lose that? Again.
You think Sue Robinson's going to come out and say 6 to 8 games? because now there's a tweet or a report coming out saying that it might be 6 to 8 games, and the NFL doesn't want to get ugly and murky with the appeals. Rob Motti says, I'm also told the NFL, despite insisting on an indefinite suspension, wants to avoid the appeals process. Source said a terrible situation for everyone involved. So league is more likely to abide by Sue Robinson's ruling if she came back with 6 to 8 games. So the NFLPA and the NFL currently sitting in a court that Sue L. Robinson, former federal judge, retired in 2017, is presiding. She will make a decision. She will then send that decision to Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell will then make his full decision. There is a chance to appeal in Sue Robinson's NFL court, and they're saying that the NFL doesn't want to get ugly. Appeal. Public, more public, more public. They're saying that 6 to 8 games or whatever would be okay. That goes to Roger Goodell. Does Roger Goodell come out and say, Sue Robinson, and big thank you to Sue Robinson taking time out of her retirement, her life, to do the honorable move of being our judge. She recommended 6 to 8 games after the court through the NFLPA and the NFL, and we thank everybody for doing that. With that being said, I'm doing a full season. So I'm babyface here. I'm going to do that, have a good one, keep it moving. It went from people saying it'll just be a fine to indefinite suspension, at least a year. Now this tweet seems like it's kind of setting the table for maybe it's just a certain amount of games for the season, but ultimately in the end it's whatever the fuck Roger Goodell wants to do.
Roger's main concern is the shield, correct? And how people perceive the league and how people look at the league and backlash for the league. So when Roger's making his decision, I feel like if it's 6 to 8 games, there's going to be quite a bit of backlash on the league. I feel like if she does recommend that. Now, if
he would be quite a babyface, though, if he said, I wasn't expecting to tell you guys what Sue was wanting to rule, but she said 8 games is what they decided on. That's cute, Sue. 17 games plus playoffs, Roger Goodell.
I think he gets a big applaud.
He probably ends up on the 60 under 60 list or 70 under 70 list
1,000%
of like baby faces in the world if he does that. That's why AJ keeps asking. Like he asks Ian, he asks Andrew Brandt, he asks a bunch of people. He's like, "Are we going to hear what Sue actually recommends?"
Yeah.
Because if we don't hear what Sue recommends, we'll just assume that whatever Roger Goodell says is Sue. But if not, I think the only way we hear about it is if Roger makes an adjustment to it or goes directly by it, which would be any situation, I guess.
I see. Like they've been saying, I'm on your side. Like I think we're gonna know what the recommendation was too. I think we're gonna know what the recommendation was, and we're obviously gonna know what this final
This is the
suspension
first time
was.
Sue has come into the NFL world full time, like in this situation. Roger Goodell's going to have to try to protect her. The 6 to 8 games thing, it would be interesting, and I guess that's what the NFL has to do. And there's going to be people that are going to be pissed forever, regardless. I guess is another way to look at it. Maybe is that how they'll look at it?
There's also the idea of something like this being leaked or floated out to gauge public reaction to say, okay, if it was 6 to 8 games, how are people going to react?
You think Rob Motti there was doing a job or doing a task for somebody?
I can't rule it out.
This thing is fascinating, Triggs, and you've been around the league a long time. I've been around, I guess, for a long time as well, more than a decade. No big deal.
Whoa, how about that?
I've been covering the NFL for more than a decade, but I've been around the NFL on the inside of it for a little bit, and I feel like I had a position where I could be perspective of everything going on. You know, I could kind of look around and see things and have a little bit more of a dialogue on how the day-to-day works. The Deshaun Watson, and I went through a couple of CBA negotiations and listened to all the people that are pissed off about everything. I had my own deals with the NFLPA because when I was in the substance abuse program, they were nowhere to be found as I was getting abused. And then they sold my rights for pennies on a dollar, like you said. So I'm not necessarily the biggest NFLPA fan either, but I do know that they're going to bat for Deshaun Watson currently. This Sue Robinson courtroom that is happening within the NFL bubble, there was a potential settlement that almost came about, but they couldn't agree on a term. And then now they're in court the last 2 days. Deshaun Watson's been there. This is happening in the state of Delaware, I believe.
Okay.
Is that where it's at? It's in Delaware, I think.
Yes.
Still happening today. Sue will give her ruling. Then she tells there's appeals, but the NFL said they don't want to get into an appeal game because that's ugly for everybody. Then that'll go to Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell makes his decision. Today, it felt like from a tweet from a guy named Mr. Motti, Rob Motti, M-A-A-D-D-I, He said that the NFL, if Sue Robinson came back and they were pushing for an indefinite suspension, at least a year, NFLPA is obviously pushing for nothing. So if you do just classic negotiation and meet in the middle, that'd be what, 8.5 games? Because now it's a 17-game season. So allegedly, what Rob Maaddi's reporting, and we don't know who Rob Maaddi is or who his sources are, he's saying that if the Sue Robinson was to roll back 6 to 8 game suspension, the NFL wouldn't want to get ugly with it, and they'd say okay. Sue would then take that to Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell would make his own decision on whether or not that's good enough or bad enough. I assume this is going to be at least a season with how everything has gone, how public this has been. It's sounding like maybe there's a little bit of a foundation being laid, like, hey, maybe not a full season. Let's go to. What are you thinking about the whole process, and when do you think it ends, and how do you think it ends? Sure.
I can't project on this because it is so fluid. Things were going one way, and then you get more women coming out and saying, actually, hey, no, there's more women coming, and that door is left open. So those numbers have continued to add up. When you talk about the legal thing, you've nailed it, Pat, where it's here's the recommendation from the judge. Usually those are held in very high regard, and then Goodell will make a recommendation or make a ruling on that. Then the NFLPA will appeal that, but then the NFL can appeal the NFLPA's ability to appeal that, which is what happened with the Brady case, and it goes all the way up the courts, and you miss games, and the guys go in, and then they go back. I think the NFL, from their standpoint, would like to have a decision on this in the next couple of weeks before we head into training camp. And I believe Watson's camp would obviously be hopeful that he can get on the field, and the Browns, of course, would be happy to get him on the field. I think the public relations part of it, which you guys were discussing beforehand, I'm not so sure that's going to dictate how this goes. I think it's going to be from the facts that they have and from the recommendations that Ms. Robinson has on it, Justice Robinson has on this thing, because you start playing a game where you're trying to please one group versus the other, and there's a no-win in that one.
Hey, there's going to be people that are pissed regardless. I mean,
this is a no-win regardless. So say they give him a year, well, then there's going to be a case from the PA saying, well, there's no precedent to give him a year based on the evidence that we have. Necessarily that the fact that they haven't settled, they believe that
I'm a
Watson
super
has
player guy. Hey,